I was actually born. My mother grew up going to church because I went to the same church that my grandparents helped start in Arlington, and so my mother grew up at that church, and then I, in turn, also grew up at the same church in Arlington, and so me and Erica are from Arlington. Sorry, this is nerve-wracking. I'm an introvert by nature, and having all of you look at me that I have no idea who most of you are is scary. So my testimony begins at a very early age. I accepted Christ about 7 or 8 years old. I don't remember how old I was, but I do remember it was in Sunday school. My Sunday school teacher presented the gospel, and as simply as I can put it, I didn't want to go to hell, and I wanted to go to heaven. And so I want to believe in Jesus. And so baptized shortly after that, and it's not that I turned away from the Lord, but I didn't necessarily make the Lord a priority at all points in my life, as I'm sure many of you can probably relate. So I got into junior high, and I wasn't necessarily a bad kid, but I was mischievous, and I had the potential to be a little punk. And so I said I wasn't necessarily a bad kid, but I did things that the bad kids did, and I guess that maybe makes me a bad kid, I don't know. But anyway, so about freshman year, between 8th and 9th grade year, it was between 8th and 9th grade year at summer camp, Lord just got a hold of me, and I remember that the pastor, his big deal was sharing your testimony. And so the camp pastor, he shared his testimony, and he had someone up on stage every time he had a chance to share someone's testimony. And after hearing all these different stories about God had saved them, or God had called them through these different things, I just remember thinking, God saying, look at all this. Do we have to go through all this for you to get back to following me, or are you just going to turn your life around? And I was like, okay, yes sir, So rededicated my life to the Lord at that camp, and just pursued after Him ever since then. And it was, I was always involved in church. Mom made me go to church whether I liked it or not, but actually after that I wanted to be involved in stuff going on in church. Not just youth stuff, but just everything going on. I fell in love with the Lord and what He was doing in my local church and in the community, and I wanted to be a part of it. So a few years later, between sophomore and junior year in high school, at a different summer camp actually at Piney Woods, God called me to the ministry. Pastor was the camp does, I'm sure Piney Woods still does this, where they sponsor an orphanage in the summer, and they do like a mission offering for this ministry that goes on. And so the camp pastor had kind of used that idea for the mission offering happening, and landed his sermon with not just a call of salvation, but also a call to the ministry as part of the altar call. And he explained that and kind of introduced that idea. And I was at the point in my life where I was like, okay, what am I going to do with my life? Like, what's God calling me to? What am I going to go to school for? That kind of thing. And so that idea had already kind of been on my mind a little bit, and he brought it up, and I just remember praying, God, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? And as clearly as I can describe it, God audibly said, I want you to be in ministry. One of the clearest, most distinct calls I've ever had from the Lord to do anything. And so obviously responded positively to that, and I told my youth pastor at the time, and he took me under his wing and just he attached me to his hip to everything that he did as a youth pastor. And so that meant hospital visits, football games, whatever. I mean, business meetings, all that, just everything, all the fun stuff and all the not so fun stuff. He just brought me along and said, if you want to be in ministry, this is what it looks like. And that did nothing but just ignite my fire and make me want to do it more. And so graduated from high school. I went to college at Dallas Baptist University, where I got a biblical studies degree, and me and my wife had started dating right before we graduated from high school. We have literally grown up together. Our grandparents were good friends. They would sit next to each other in the parking lot at elementary school and talk to each other, waiting for us to walk out to be picked up. So we've known each other for literally our whole lives, but we didn't start dating until end of senior year in high school. And we dated through college. Erica also graduated from DBU. We were married in January of 2013, and in February, so the whirlwind for me was I graduated in December of 2012. We got married in January of 2013, and in February of 2013 I started serving at the first church that God had led me to, and we just jumped right in. And Erica loves students as much as I do. She is not called to be a youth pastor, but she is definitely called to be a youth pastor's wife, and I praise God that that's how He's paired us together. Grant said we have a little boy named Easton. He is 2. He turned 2 this previous September. And they say payback is a real thing, and I have to apologize frequently to my wife for the way that my son behaves sometimes. He's all boy, and we have another one on the way. We don't have a name picked out for him yet, but he is due in March, and so our little family's growing, and we're excited about that too. So that's kind of my testimony in a nutshell. So kind of my philosophy of ministry. I could go on and on about my thoughts on youth ministry, but I think my motivating factors are kind of 3 things. And the first is I have a set of goals for every student that comes through my ministry, regardless of what the context is. And my 3 goals for every student is one, that they would know Jesus. They would know Jesus for the first time if they haven't already. That we through preaching the gospel, through evangelism, that if you're not a Christian by the time you get into youth ministry, that you are a Christian when you leave the youth ministry. And then the second is that I want every student to fall in love with Jesus. And we do that through discipleship and worship, that we take them from just being a disciple, but starting to teach them everything that Jesus commanded us to teach. And so that discipleship is a big deal for me. It's a high priority for me, because I think that is just as important as getting people saved and baptized. Is okay, now here's how we walk in the Lord. And so that's a big deal for me, and so that's number 2. And then number 3 is that every student would serve Jesus. I want students to want to serve Jesus, and I want them to serve Jesus in the local church. And so that part of that means that we provide opportunities for them to do that. But then also I want every student to make a decision to serve Jesus personally, whether that's at school, in their house, with their career choice, whatever. I want students to want to serve Jesus. And so those are my goals, and how we get there, the how and the details of that are variable. They can change, and they change for different seasons. They change for different contexts or different makeups of the group. But everything that we do, everything that I do is with that end in mind. Even if it's just we go have fun event, there's not like a bait and switch, but this is the motivating factor of these 3 goals. And so that's kind of frames how I plan everything, and how my mind works when I'm thinking about youth ministries. How can whenever I think about anything with youth ministry, is the measure against that is, does it help us achieve these goals? And if we can justify it, or if it does, then yeah. But if not, then I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just we need to focus on what's most important. And so kind of the next thing is like I said, discipleship's a big deal for me. And part of that is training students to be adults in the church. Eventually they're going to graduate, regardless of how good a job we do or don't do. Students are going to graduate, and then they're going to be in the real world, and we need to do a good job of training them to work and to live in the church. And so part of that is I don't see the youth ministry as a separate entity. It's very much under the umbrella of the entire church. Much in the same way we see the youth ministry, or the children's ministry, the choir, the men's ministry, all that stuff. It doesn't do its own. It does its own thing to a certain degree, but it's not out by itself, and doesn't reciprocate the support that the church gives it. And so, like we were talking earlier today about what do you want to do with the schedule, or Sunday nights, or stuff like that. It's like, well, does the church do stuff on Sunday nights? Well, then yeah, we need to mirror. I think it'd be a good idea to mirror the schedule of what the church is doing, because we're part of the church. And so when VBS comes around, we're not going to do a youth VBS. So I'm going to say, okay, where can I put my students in? Where can they help with VBS? Same thing with, I'm sure this already happens with Bethlehem Nights. Like, we're not just going to go and enjoy Bethlehem Nights. Like, where can we stick them in? Can someone be Mary or Joseph, or help with lights, or whatever? We're all in this together, and that includes, and students are at a unique point in life where they have very little responsibility comparatively, not belittling anything that you have going on, but You don't have bills, you don't have kids. Their responsibility is low, but the potential is really high. And so they're in a unique situation we can capitalize on a lot of that. And then the third thing for me is parents are a big thing that I think is an untapped ministry in youth. It's kind of this next-gen type of ministry idea is, I'm convinced that, and it doesn't take a lot of convincing, that God designed discipleship primarily to happen in home. That parents should be, biblically speaking, parents, you should be the primary people who disciple your children and teach them about the Lord. And that's not a loaded statement. That's just a statement of fact. And so where I feel like my responsibility is what God has called me to is there's a lot of parents in the church that are willing and that would love to do that, but lack the ability or lack the training, or maybe you've never had that modeled well for you, and so you don't even know what you're. As a parent, you hardly know what you're doing most of the time anyway, right? But then now you start talking about how I got to teach them about Jesus. Like, how do I do that? And so one of the priorities for me is providing tools and training and opportunities for you to have those conversations and to empower you to have those conversations. And then for the students that the parents are unwilling, I'm not the Holy Spirit. I can't force that on parents. But for the parents that are willing but not able, I want to give you ability. I want to equip you. And for the students that have parents that are unwilling, then as a church, it's our responsibility to spiritually adopt these kids. And that's part of the reason that God has created the church to function in such a way, and that grace covers even a multitude of sins, and even as where parents abdicate that responsibility, God still says, look, I got this, and I put you in a church where there's people who can fill that role for you and mentor you. And so I think if we can do a good job of those things, then the research, and I'm kind of a nerd, I read a lot of stuff, but the research with talking about students when students graduate from high school, and students that graduate from college, from their faith when they graduate from high school, and the students that don't. The research that says that, or the people that research this, the students that graduate from college and continue on with their faith, 100% of them had either a set of parents or a set of adults in the church that cared about them and that mentored them. 100% of the time. They had varying degrees of involvement in youth ministry and a lot of variation in events and what they did in church, but the one thing that was universally in common with students that graduate from high school and continue on with faith is they had adults that took an interest in it, whether it was their parents or somebody else. And so one of my priorities will be to foster that, to make this place a fertile ground for those kind of relationships and those things to happen. So I think that's the secret sauce to lifelong discipleship, is having a mentor. So that kind of answer all the questions you wanted me to cover. So anyway, thank you.